John, you made $220,000 in just 1 month with your AI agency.
Yeah, we're doing, nearly $3 million a year with my agency. We have a really successful agency.
So how did you get to meet Iman Gadzhi?
I've known him since like 2019, and he was one of the that I had on my.
You guys work with, what, over 1,000 probably clients total?
771. And I remember somebody was like, man, $1,500 a month, that's a lot of money. And I told the guy, I was like, dude, I know what you mean, bro. I'm spending $2,000 a day right now. And I remember the guy just looking at me and being like, damn. And the guy actually signed up. Why should they actually trust me over everyone else? And if you're really honest with yourself, the answer is like, they shouldn't.
All right, so John, you made $220,000 in just 1 month with your AI agency. Tell the people how you were able to do this.
Yeah, that's a hard question to answer. But I think that the way that I would think about it is the agency model is just extremely simple. You first have to crack client acquisition, right? And so you've worked with many people in the agency space. I have, obviously, as well. And the biggest issue that people tend to have is they just can't figure out how to acquire clients. That is the biggest bottleneck for everybody that's below 7 figures. So for us, it happened in phases where there were things that we had to figure out all throughout the way. But I would say the biggest one was figuring out client acquisition. So as soon as we figured that out, we were able to scale pretty quickly.
Yep. And do you want to tell the people kind of who your agency worked with, the niche, maybe parts of the service delivery you want to kind of go through it?
Yeah. So we worked with realtors, and our offer changed a few times, but it was relatively straightforward. We would generate, follow up with, and schedule booked appointments directly on their calendar. That was kind of our tagline. So a bit of what I call a hybrid offer, an offer that is not necessarily just one thing, but kind of an amalgamation of a few different services, combining them all into one, and then having that hybrid of, it's not necessarily an addition offer, right? It's not something that's just pure adding something to the client's business. It's also not purely like a time saving or subtraction offer. It's kind of a hybrid that both makes clients money and saves them time, which is what all the best agency offers do, right? A good example, I'm sure the people have seen your video where you did your challenge, your very long 10-hour, 12-hour video. But that's kind of what your guys' offer did, right? Is
correct.
It's a hybrid offer. It saves the client money makes the client money rather, and saves them time in the process. So that's kind of what our offer did for realtors.
Gotcha. And I believe you told me before this, your agency made well over, I think, was it $5 million
through about 3 years.
Just agency services. And I think where people obviously, we can kind of go into the backstory first of like how we met, which is kind of funny. So I met you. You were good friends with Iman Gadzhi, for those probably know him. And you were a coach at the time in his program. And I knew you were in the real estate niche, so I was showing up to your calls. This was really early days. Like I don't even know how old I was. I was like maybe 17, 16 years old. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I was always showing up. I was like, John's the man. He's always, he knows everything about the niche, right? Because you're in the same niche as me. And I remember you kind of helped me go from like 0 to 3K a month, 5K a month, 10K a month, 20K a month. And you watched kind of the whole progression. What do you think is the biggest reason why people can't go from like 0 to say like even 10K a month? Let's just start at 10K a month. Like what is the biggest thing between that, gap?
Well, I want to highlight something you said that's pretty interesting, which is you were basically just saying like, I wanted to talk to John because I knew that he knew about the realtor niche. But after you've been in the game, you realize that basically all niches are the same. Right. Yeah. So selling to med spas is really no different than selling to realtors. At the end of the day, you're selling to a human being who has to trust you at a high enough level in order to be willing to give you their credit card and retain you for their services, or retain you for your services. Right. At the end of the day. So I think the reason that people don't really break through, I think it's a few reasons. A big one that I like to highlight, though, is most people just straight up don't trust a newbie selling agency services. And I think this is kind of a hard thing to overcome for a lot of people, where they are kind of stuck in this chicken and egg scenario where they say, the reason I don't have any clients is because I don't have a case study. But you need a client in order to get a case study. And so I think this is actually a limiting belief and a big problem that a lot of new agency owners have, is they keep saying, well, I need a case study, I need a case study, I need a case study. But they have to get a client in order to get a case study. And it's sort of this cycle that they kind of stay stuck in. And so I think that's a big issue that people have. And I think they don't really realize, like, you don't necessarily need a case study to get a client. Every single agency owner who's scaled not every single one, but the majority of agency owners that I know who have scaled, myself included, got clients before they had like solid case studies. But I think the big issue with a lot of beginners is they go into a niche basically knowing nothing about the niche, right? They have no context on who they're serving, how these people behave, why they buy stuff, what they're motivated by, etc. Like they know nothing about kind of building like a client avatar or even understanding who they're selling to or what their ICP is. And I think this is a massive problem. I learned this a lot when I coached an Iman's program, because when I coached an Iman's program, I was far removed from being a beginner, right? Like I didn't even really have context of what the mindset of a beginner agency owner even really was until I obviously coached an Iman's program. And then I kind of realized like, okay, the big problem with a lot of these beginners is they just kind of like throw a dartboard at a niche and just pick a niche and they know basically nothing about it. So like a lot of people would say, I'm working with realtors. And I would be like, cool, how does a realtor actually get paid? And they have no idea, right? Like, what are the popular real estate brokerages, right? How does a real estate brokerage work? What does it mean when a real estate agent says that they work for a brokerage? Like, do they actually work with them? Do they get a salary? They know nothing about their industry. And it makes it really, really hard to sell and market to people who you know absolutely nothing about, right? So I think that's a huge problem. And I think that they don't focus enough on offer as well. And so I think that a lot of new agency owners are very timid about trying to make a good offer, right? So I think that in the beginning, people don't like to hear me say this, and I've heard you say something kind of similar, which is when you're newer, you do need to have an aggressive offer if you're going to sign people up, because they basically have no reason to trust you, right? So the mindset that I would have if I was just brand new and just getting started would have to be to really look at myself in the mirror and say, why should realtors, med spas, chiropractors, whoever it is that I work with, why should they actually trust me over everyone else? And if you're really honest with yourself, the answer is like, they shouldn't. So the only way you can win is offer. And so I think that's what you did a great job of. Like you really understood, like especially when you were first scaling, hey, if I'm going to win, I have to have a good offer and I have to have, the fulfillment in place to be able to back up that offer. Of course, you're not just trying to run like the revolving door, but you have to have a strong enough offer to bridge that gap of getting someone to trust you who pretty much has no reason to.
Yeah. Yeah, 100%. I think it's the fundamentals. Now, when it was scaling from 10K to 100K a month, what was that for you? What were the different problems you struggled with there? Because obviously, I mean, your agency, you guys worked with over 1,000 probably clients total?
771. Not quite 1,000.
So we're in that range.
Yeah. 771.
So what was it to go from 10 to 100K a month? What was the thing for you?
The phases didn't really break out that simply. It was more so like 0 really to 10K a month. 0 to 10K a month, you're not like at a place where, you're making 10K a month, you're doing really well financially. That's kind of a lie that everybody, I've talked about this before, but like you think when you get to 10K a month that you've like made it.
It's not much.
It's not much.
Money.
No, it's not great. Yeah. It's really not great. It's actually like some of the toughest times that I remember. You don't want to be at 10K a month very long. I always say like getting to 30K a month is when you start to really get what you thought you would have had at 10K a month. So 30K a month is like you have some clients, you have some leverage, you're starting like things are starting to work. And so for us, it kind of happened in phases where, multiple kind of phases. Really, the first phase was getting to 30K a month, and we got there pretty much all outbound. And so to touch on another thing that you kind of asked earlier, I think a lot of people fail because they're just not good at outbound, or they don't really understand the volume of outbound required, or like how much of a skill outbound actually is. It's a lot more than just like writing up some message and copy and pasting it and blasting it to.
You got to 30K a month through outbound, not even ads?
All outbound.
Holy cow. Okay, so maybe talk about that, because I was almost fully ads after I hit like 2-3K a month. So how did you scale to that, I guess, with
so I think we were good at sales. I think was actually the caveat is that we could get people on a discovery call and get them into a demo and close them. And I think our scripting was really good. I tested tons of scripting, and I actually scaled outbound in a way that a lot of people didn't scale outbound. So like a lot of times people just get like one VA, or maybe they'll just do it all themselves. They won't even get a VA. But I actually at one point had a team of like 5 VAs that were all doing outbound for me, and I was getting multiple different accounts to use. And I actually was able to scale LinkedIn and Facebook really to getting like 10 appointments or so a day, like 10 discovery calls or so per day. So we got outbound working really well, and we had a great process for having a really good discovery call with that person, getting them super excited about, our system, and then getting them on a demo, and it was great. Like we did very well with that. And then when we turned on ads, that was around 30K a month when we turned on ads. and we got also great results from ads. But I think that was because we had already done so much with outbound. Like, because we had validated our offer through outbound, we had case studies already, we had testimonials already, we had kind of our sales system really dialed in. I think because of that, our ads actually worked a lot better. So yeah, we pushed outbound pretty hard. I think the thing is, I think more people can do that. I just think a lot of people are like really impatient. So, we ran outbound for like probably 8 months, right? Like, we didn't just get a few clients and then immediately turn on ads. But you also have to remember
cold DMs or cold emails?
Cold DMs, Facebook groups.
Okay.
So just literally adding realtors on Facebook, starting conversations with them, like not like spamming, like, hey, dude, I have this agency and we do X, Y, and Z. It was more so like very generic openers. Like, one that worked really well for us was we DM somebody and it would be like, hey, Carson, are you in real estate full time? And the person would respond and be like, yeah, I am actually in real estate full time. It would be like, cool, I see you're over in, Southern California. And how's the market over there? And the person would be like, yeah, the market over here is not that great. Maybe we'd ask another question like, are you working with more buyers or more sellers? Or they might say the market, I'm impromptuing their responses. But we'd kind of go back and forth with them a little bit. And then we would send basically like a super direct offer, basically saying, cool, the reason I wanted to reach out is because we don't currently have a partner in Southern California. We actually help realtors get 3 to 5 new deals in 90 days. And our results are totally guaranteed. You have 15 minutes tomorrow to talk about how it works. And then we would just have an incredible discovery call, like really good discovery. I ran all the discovery. Even when I got setters, like I never really outsourced that. It was either me or my business partner, Adam, who never did any like sales demos. Like, he never pitched people, but he would do the discovery sometimes when he was like, or when we were overbooked with them essentially. But yeah, that worked really well for us. So we got to like $30K a month, all outbound. And then we turned on paid. And then I pretty much just never looked back and only just scaled paid.
That's kind of most people, I think, I turn on ads. But that's good you guys proved. I mean, that's kind of what I did, but a much smaller scale, right? I got to like 3-4K a month initially with just DMs, just kind of cold outreach. And then eventually was like, all right, let me, funnel this money into ads. And that's what jumped me immediately 10-20K a month. So for you, was it I'm curious, was it like a DM setter team? Was it just you guys on these Facebook groups? Was it?
No, I basically, dude, I did it for like 2 weeks to validate the process. And then I just immediately got virtual assistants. So at one point I had 5 VAs. That was kind of the height of the team. We started with one guy. His name was Justin. I actually really remember him very well. I trained him very well too. Like, we had great SOPs, great training, great scripting, great tracking. Like, I ran, and I guess I didn't really know that I was doing this at the time, but I ran my VA team literally like you would run a sales team. Like the same amount of tracking, this EOD processes, really good SOPs, good training, check-in calls very regularly. I took that very seriously because I think I realized, I don't know why I realized this, dude. I don't know why I had kind of the foresight to know this, but like, I just knew the only way we're going to scale is if we just had a lot of calls on the calendar, right? And so I think what kind of happens with every agency owner is they start to do this like math, like one of my mentors used to call it back of the napkin math. And you realize like, I can actually get like really rich doing this business model. But like the biggest thing is I just got to get clients. Like, I just have to get appointments on the calendar in order to get those clients. And so like, I would just do math like pretty relentlessly and be like, well, if I can put 6 demos on the calendar per day, 2 of those can close, we're going to be at $1 trillion. It's like compounds, and it's it doesn't normally ever work out like that. Like, but you still see the math and you're like, wow, this is crazy. And so I knew kind of the biggest bottleneck was just going to be putting appointments on the calendar. And so, yeah, at one point we had 5 VAs and it was great. And we had really good training, really good tracking. And the bottleneck sort of became, it's hard to get too much more accounts. So, we were at like one VA would have 3 to 4 different LinkedIn and Facebook accounts that they were running off of. So it makes it a little bit hard to scale that. And then once we turned on paid was just so much easier because the VAs did take a lot of time and management and checking in and that kind of thing. And once we turned on paid, it was sort of like, okay, we're just going to go full steam ahead.
You just get appointments while you sleep. It's like you just manage a couple ads and then you're good to go. Yeah. That's kind of how it is. Yeah. Okay, cool. So you just kind of realized volume's going to negate luck. You eventually had so many calls in the calendar. I assume that we're already kind of vetted to an extent and you just started ripping deals left and right, clients. And
yeah, because we had already had all the experience from outbound, right? So outbound should be a more difficult sale, not necessarily because the prospect, like I think that people get this wrong. Where outbound is a harder sale, not necessarily because the prospect is any different or more or less qualified, but more so just because they haven't like openly expressed interest in what you do. So if you have an ad that says, hey, we'll get you 150 new patients for your med spa in 90 days, the person clicking on that ad is at least interested in that service and in a position where likely they actually can handle new patients. They're actually a med spa, like they're in the market for that service. Now, they might not be fully sold on you or your agency doing it, but they know they want that service, right? Or they know they're interested in that service. That's going to be a warmer lead naturally. Whereas with outbound, you might be reaching out to somebody who's like not really in the market for any lead generation, might not even like want to pay for lead generation, might be all referral only or whatever the case may be. And so that's why it's kind of a harder lead, not necessarily because like the leads from outbound are more financially unqualified than the leads from inbound. It's more so an intent thing. So this is one thing that I actually like talk about with my clients all the time is there's a difference between intent and like quality, right? And so I think people kind of put these all into one bucket. But what I mean by that is, let's say your med spa offer, as an example, Bill Gates opts into your funnel, okay? Well, he is like the highest quality lead that you could possibly get because he has unlimited buying power. But he's not a med spa owner. So his intent is extremely low, right? So this is a different thing. So just because somebody's financially qualified doesn't necessarily mean they're going to have a high intent level. And so what we found from inbound versus outbound was the qualification, like the being financially qualified, was really no different. It was the intent level that kind of had the variance to it, if you will. So that was kind of what we saw inbound versus outbound. That makes sense.
Yeah, that's one thing I think with running ads, right, is like you kind of practice what you preach to an extent because you're getting all your clients through the exact same service you're probably pitching them with, right? So it's like, we're going to run your ads. How did you jump on this call? It was through an ad I literally ran and targeted you with, you know? So it's like, it's kind of the perfect sales process because you've already proved to them you know what you're doing, you know?
And you also show, I love that you said that, because you show that you also believe in the thing that you do. And when you're asking somebody to do something, you're not asking them to do something that you're unwilling to do yourself. And so I would stay on sales calls. I love taking sales calls for my agency. It was like the most fun thing. So even when I had 3 closers, I still took sales calls.
You were a sales demon. I remember watching your call recordings.
Thank you,
like,
man.
In those calls, I'd be like, damn, dude, how do I get like, yeah, it was like, they were good. I remember watching them.
Thank you. I think that's why I like doing them, because I was good at doing them, right? So it's like when, you bring a friend over to your house and he's like, let's play a video game. You always want to play the video game that you know you're the best at, right? So that's kind of like, that's the one that you like to play. So for me, I was kind of the same way with sales. I knew I was good at the sales call, so I just like to continue doing it. But one thing that I really remember is like we would have the realtors spend like $1,500 a month on ads, let's say, right? And I remember somebody was like, man, $1,500 a month, that's a lot of money. And I told the guy, I was like, dude, I know what you mean, bro. I'm spending $2,000 a day right now. And I remember the guy just looking at me and being like, damn. And the guy actually signed up because it was like, dude, I'm asking you to do less than 1/10 or, like way less than 1/30. Yeah, exactly. Of what I'm actually doing here myself. And so like, I'm not a hypocrite and asking you to do something that I don't also, do on my own. So I think that's a really good point because it shows like, not only do you believe in it, but you believe in it so much that you actively do it as well. And I think that's like a huge, huge thing on the sales call and in the sales process.
Yeah. And I think let's jump to, I remember how I initially found you. I mean, of course, I bought Iman's course when I first started, and that's why I found you in there. But I remember watching, I think it may have been an interview you did with Iman. Iman had you on his channel because you hit, I don't know if it was like $50K a month or 60. I don't remember the number. It was like maybe 100K a month with your agency, and you kind of did a whole interview with him. This was, 4 or 5 years ago?
Dude, that was in like 2020. That was when I had like a 16K month. Like we really hadn't even, I hadn't even really started my main agency offer yet. I was kind of just almost like a freelancer at that point.
I see. So how did you get to meet Iman, and what was the coaching like in there? Because I know you kind of just did the coaching on like a side thing, with the agency. Because I mean, the coaching was like an hour a week or whatever. How many calls you did? So what was it? How'd you get to meet him, and what was that like?
I've known him for a really long time. I've known him since like 2019 when he was just sort of like the agency guy, which is kind of what he was. And then he became now like, everybody knows who he is now. He's like a massive figure now. But in like 2019, he was just sort of like the agency guy. And so I had a podcast that I would interview like business people, and he was one of the guests that I had on my podcast. And we kind of just became friends from there. And I was like, dude, I'm an agent. I'm trying to start an agency. And, I was in process. When I started my agency career, I was basically doing kind of like anything and everything to just get people to pay me money. And one of those things was like press articles. So I would do like, I would get people published in like these random kind of websites online. Like, it's funny because if you see some people's articles, like a Jeremy Haynes article as an example, some of those are actually written by me. Like he was one of our press clients in like.
Oh, really? No way.
Yeah,
that's crazy.
It's just random. A bunch of people like that that you would probably know. But those were all like random kind of press clients who I kind of got through having my podcast. So I was like kind of known as a podcaster. So it was a really good adjacent thing to say, hey, I have my podcast, but I also feature you in press articles. And I had like no recurring revenue with that, though, was kind of the problem. So I would sell somebody a package, and it was sort of like they don't need it done again. This is sort of the problem with, as an example, selling websites. You sell somebody a website, you're not going to then immediately sell them another website. It's done. You know what I mean? Like they might need another one in 2 years or whatever. But the press articles were kind of the same way. So I knew I wanted to sell other services like Facebook ads or SEO or whatever, other services were out there. So I kind of got interested in the Facebook ad stuff. That's kind of how I got connected with Iman. He came on the podcast. And then Iman actually started to refer me clients who didn't have enough money to pay him. This is in like 2019. So I was sort of like the throwaway clients that couldn't pay Iman, he would kind of refer them to me. And we were sort of a generalist sort of agency. It was called 99 Media. We were very generalist. So we had like some info product people, like 2. We had a guy who sold insurance. I remember we had a guy that was a fix and flipper. And then I had a realtor. And so I just kind of just like guerrilla warfare, just like trying to get customers, just, random all over the place kind of efforts. No case studies, like no track record, really, just, trying to just do volume, basically.
Sure.
And our realtor, he had got decent results. And then that's when I went all in on working with the realtor. And I actually remember when I did that interview with Iman, I was getting some traction, right? In like $16K a month or whatever, I think it was. And people might see that and think like, oh man, he was doing well. I was not doing well. You know what I mean? Like that was beginner startup kind of phases. That was a hot month. That wasn't like we were just like murdering it at that point. You know what I mean? And I actually,
that's what no one will say online is usually like those, 10K, 15, 20K months. Like a lot of the times they don't factor in profit margin. It may have just been one big month with a bunch of piffs. Like there's a lot of,
Yeah, there's always stuff going on behind the scenes. For being like whatever I was, 19, we were doing great. Like but it wasn't like I was really succeeding with the agency yet, right? And I actually remember asking Iman, because Iman was like so smart, and he was like, hey, we'll do a 30-minute interview, and then like you can just ask me any questions you have for like 15 minutes. And I remember specifically asking him like, hey, I have this realtor that we got, like, should we go all in with realtors? Which I actually don't think I've ever told that story before publicly, but I literally remember asking him, I remember exactly where I was and everything, like, hey, should I go all in on the realtors? And he's like, dude, if the person's getting good results and everybody else is getting bad results, then maybe that would be the direction to go. And then we just started scaling up realtors. And then actually later, like a year or so later, I actually paid Iman's agency to audit my ads. So it wasn't necessarily like I was just a product of Grow Your Agency or the coaching side. I was actually one of his agency consulting clients. So I actually got on a call with him. He sold me services. Danny and Kieran and his whole team kind of like worked on my account. So it's kind of a cool moment because not only did I like learn, some agency stuff from him, but I also like worked with his agency, which is kind of cool.
Interesting. So that's like early days. I didn't even know that. And then eventually, of course, once you had the success or whatever, you jumped in as like I'm sure he offered you like a one call a week to jump on, and that's how I met you, in the program. So
yeah, exactly.
That's super cool.
Yeah. And then we worked more in depth together. So I was on the C-suite over there at Educate for a while. Me and Paul was working with Paul and Iman, and
that's right. Yeah, we can talk about that for a second. So you eventually went really high up at his company. I'm sure you were already pretty good friends. I remember seeing a video of him gifting you a Rolex or something like that. I remember seeing something like that.
Dang,
so you got a good relationship with them, dude. I've got a pretty good memory. I mean, I was in the circle. Like that's how I met all you guys. I remember meeting Paul Daly. So, what was that like? Because eventually you grew more into this like very like I guess big figure in this agency space where you're kind of managing this big company, with Iman. What was that like?
Yeah, so I think that a lot of people don't go from seven-figure business owner to having a job, right? Kind of a weird pivot for a lot of people. But I think that the way that I sort of thought about it was, what else, like how else am I going to learn about running an 8-figure company, right? And I don't want to like say Iman's numbers, right? Of course. But I mean, dude, like the guy's made more money in the info space than really anybody, you know? And I think you don't have to be an expert to realize.
A genius to figure that out. No.
Yeah, you don't have to be, it doesn't take a rocket science degree to know. He's made more money than basically anybody in the space and had a great reputation and like a lot of longevity throughout that and also has a sick company with a sick culture where everybody freaking loves each other and it's cool people. And I still have great relationships with a lot of the people over there. And so for me, I kind of thought like, okay, what better opportunity would there be to be inside of and see inside of an 8-figure company, multi-8-figure company, and get to work with some really cool people in the process and also get to learn from somebody who I really, really, really respect. And I said this before, there was like literally one person on earth that I would have been willing to kind of take a step back for and go work with, and it was Iman, because I learned so much from him and it was such a wonderful experience, and with Paul and all the people over there, and obviously they're killing it. So that was kind of the reason that I wanted to do that, because I felt like that was going to be the best way to actually get hands-on and learn stuff that there was really no other way or capacity in which to learn. So
what were the biggest things you learned? It's like kind of almost a selfish question too, because I'm curious to like hear what you learned.
Yeah, Iman has the sickest culture of like any company that I've ever seen. I think that's probably the biggest thing. And the thing is too, like I remember when I was maybe 2022 and we're doing, nearly $3 million a year with my agency. We have a really successful agency. If anybody would have told me like about culture or like core values, I would have been like, yeah, but like, dude, you really just need to like make sales, right? Like,
yeah, wishy-washy mindset crap. Yeah,
it all sounds stupid. Or you think like, oh, like a company retreat. I would have been like, dude, let's all like meet up and just take sales calls and like I can be like hands. I wouldn't have thought like, oh, there's like actually, because to some level when you run a company, like you're sort of a psycho. You know what I mean? You don't realize that like, hey, people actually need to have good relationships with each other. People actually need to like each other. People actually need to have, bond and like be willing to kind of go out, as corny as it sounds, and be like in the battlefield together every single day. And I think Iman understood that literally better than anything, or better than anyone. And also too, like Iman didn't necessarily bend over backwards for people just because they were talented, if that makes sense. So like what I've seen from a lot of people is and I've even been like this in my own business, is if somebody is good and really good and making the company a lot of money, but they're not like all the way up to standard on culture, or they're cutting corners in other places, as an example, I might have been willing to say, dude, it's no big deal. Like, they're making a lot of money for the company. They're ultimately benefiting me at the end of the day. Iman didn't think that way, right? It was like, you have to be a culture fit. It doesn't matter who you are. You have to be aligned with the culture and where we're taking the company. And because of that, he had a company of people that really loved each other and were willing to work so hard in order to see the company push forward. And so I think the company culture is literally the greatest that I've ever seen. Like he's the best.
Interesting. Yeah. That's hard to do. I mean, I even try to think in my business, like how I can do that. I mean, I guess some of our team, we were looking at like for the agency an in-person office in Austin, Texas. I think I was mentioning that to you earlier, but
dude, I think that would be awesome.
Yeah. Like that's just one thing I'm thinking of to do it, because I've never really had like too much of an in-depth company culture. Like we have probably over 10 people total, across on the team. So it's like definitely want to do something. I'm sure maybe looking back, you would have done something with your agency team, maybe bring it all out or do something.
One thing that I would think about with, my agency, my business partner would say this at times, who is also my COO. He would say, it feels like we have separate parts of the company. Like I've got my guys over here and he had his guys over here on like the fulfillment and media buying team. I had my guys over on the sales and setting side. And at Iman's company, it didn't feel like that. Like obviously we had departments, but everybody was connected, right? Like every single week we would all be on a call together. We had like a happy hour that we would have every single month where we would kind of get on call and just sort of like just talk, and just like, honestly, I can't even really tell you what the agenda of the call would be. It would be like, hey, once a month, everybody like bring a beer and we're all just going to sit, or whatever you drink, and I don't drink. So I would bring like a sparkling water or whatever. And it would be like 9 a.m. as well, because there were such different time zones. So definitely wasn't drinking at 9 a.m. But anyways, like everybody would get together and it would just be like fun to just see every single other person in the company, and you realize like, wow, this is so much bigger than just me, or it's so much bigger than just this department, like the sales department or the client success department, and
or the next dollar or anything like that. It's bigger as a whole brand. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. And it also, their hiring process is another thing that's really important. Their hiring process felt so strenuous that when you actually got hired there, you really felt like, oh my gosh, like this was a big freaking deal. Like I just got hired at a really legit company. Like I just made it through a very strenuous process that a lot of people don't make it through. So the series of interviews that you would have to go through to get hired were pretty intense. I got to kind of skip the line a little bit because I obviously knew Paul and I obviously knew Iman. So it was a little bit easier for me. It was actually just one call. But for most people, there was like a group interview, and then there was another interview, and then there was another interview, and then there was like a final thing. And so by the time people got through, they really felt like, wow, this is a big thing that I have like essentially achieved by getting hired at this company. Now that I'm here, I have to take this ultra seriously as well. And so that's kind of like two small things, is the camaraderie with everyone, but also the level of detail and level of depth in the hiring process was honestly unmatched. Like it was a big freaking deal.
So one of the last questions I have for you, I think this is probably an important one that other people want to hear as well, is obviously you knew Iman, you knew all them, you probably knew they were crushing. What was the transition, and why would you go from, you said the main reason you'd want to go, work with Iman is because it's a multi-8-figure company. You learn these crazy skills that you wouldn't get maybe with your current business, right? And I ask this selfishly again for myself too, because my agency, if I go out and do 5 million a year, let's say revenue, or even try to push it to 10 million, wouldn't that have been better for you to just scale your agency to 8 figures and then do it all yourself? Or what was the reason you went from agency to joining? I think that's probably like a really good question people want to hear.
Yeah, 100%. Dude, there is no level at which I was not trying actively to take my agency to 8 figures per year.
That's what I assumed it was. And I was going to say the same thing. Agency's hard to scale.
It's a hard business to take to 8 figures a year. And I can count on one hand the amount of people that I know that have done it. There's only 2 that I'm really thinking about right now that have done it specifically. And it's a hard thing to do. I think some of that can be constraints with the model, but I think a lot of that is also constraints with the entrepreneur. And so I knew for a fact there were things with me where they were constraints with me as an entrepreneur, which were causing my business to not be at 8 figures a year. And I think that my thought process and mindset behind it was truly like, I don't know what I don't know about running an 8-figure company, and I am pushing extremely hard to get to 8 figures. And I am basically playing the information game of, I don't know how to do this. And I wasn't necessarily in a hurry either. Like there wasn't this mindset of like, I need to be at 8 figures by this date or that date. Like I want to play the business game for a long time. So to kind of detour over with Iman for maybe a year or so and learn a ton and still make great money and be totally okay with, what I was making over there. And obviously, even if I wouldn't have, if I would have made no money for a year, it would have been worth it. Is what else? Like that's something that I would have done for no money, because of how much I learned, and not only just about running an 8-figure company, but also being around a person who has created. Like there's the company aspect, right? But there's also being in that close of proximity to, and being able to learn from osmosis by someone who has made that much money. And it's actually very telling to kind of vindicate myself on this, if I may. It's actually telling how many people you see right now that are in the info space, 3 to 4 or 5 that I can name right now, who were all working with Iman at the same time that I was. People that were setters, by the way, that are now doing 7 figures a year in info. They were a setter at Iman's company. Like their last job was being a DM setter, and they have a 7-figure business now. And so I think that speaks to, like, when you're in proximity with somebody who is, wildly successful, one of the most successful like young person in our space, you're going to learn things that you're not going to learn from a YouTube video by being in that closer proximity. So to me, it seemed like, okay, if this is just a little detour from my agency, which in all honesty, I knew that I can spin up again. You know, you in your video said it extremely well. You were like, hey, I know we're going to be able to crush this because we've already done it before. And so that's kind of the beauty of it. I think that when I was like first getting into the space, you would hear all these like successful people. They would be like, if I had to start over from zero, like I could do it again in like less than a year and I would do it faster. And you kind of hear them and you're like, that's bullshit. And now you're like, no, that's definitely true.
You know it's true. Yeah.
You know, because it really is just a set of frameworks that you follow. And so, that would be kind of the long-winded answer.
That's what I thought your answer would be, because I was going to say, like, even when I think of trying to grow my agency to, let's say 8 figures, right? Mm-hmm. That's whatever that is, $888K a month, whatever that is, right?
Yep.
The only way I can really think that's even possible to do that is cut back on client acquisition and have a set group of clients that make so much money where I have rev share on it. That's that's the only guys I know that are making 8 figures. They're not doing the constant churn and burn acquisition game. Like it's not possible to scale to that length with that model. I mean, maybe it is, but it's just probably not sustainable because your fulfillment's going to go to shit. Yeah. And I think everyone knows that.
Yes.
So that's what I thought it was. The learning.
Yeah, and I really do think there's a place. And I think there's a different ceiling now with a lot of the stuff that both you and I talk about with AI making fulfillment easier and some of the things that have changed the agency space for the better. But like I remember being what I really felt like was one of the most successful agency owners that I really knew of at the time. And so, and I know that sounds like a crazy thing to say, but I'll tell you why. I was in Cole Gordon's mastermind, you know, his 52K mastermind. And I remember going boardroom. And I remember I talked to literally every single person there, and I was the only agency owner there. Like everybody was coaching, consulting. Maybe some people had like some done-for-you elements, but I was the only like pure Facebook ads, follow-up, appointment booking. Like I was really the only agency, like somebody would classify themselves as an agency. And I was like, I don't really know who is out there that I can really learn from. There's more now, and I think AI has made it a lot easier. But that was kind of an issue and a bottleneck. And there was one other guy, to kind of echo off your point of what you're saying, there was one other guy who was doing lead gen, who was doing $2 million a month. And I remember doing a coaching call with him, and he kind of really went in depth on his numbers. And I actually looked at his numbers and I was like, dude, our numbers are actually better than his in terms of percentages kind of standpoint, right? Like what he's bringing in top line versus what he's keeping as a percentage. Ours was like 3 times better. Our CAC was better. Our churn was better. Like, and I was kind of thinking like, there's no way that like we're at the top end of what we could be at. And then I'm looking at this agency that's essentially 10 times bigger than mine with all of these worse numbers. And I think I kind of realized a similar thing that you did, which is like, you know, the model probably has some limitations, which for normal people, for most people that just want to like make 6 figures a year online, like it's the best model. But when you want to take it to 8 figures, it's different, and it's a different set of skills, and it's probably some pivots and some changes. But that's like probably literally 0.01% of people that are watching this video that even have the desire to make 8 figures a year. You know what I'm saying? So
people might say they want to, but at the end of the day, like even when I look at how I'm going to potentially be able to pull it off, like it's going to take not only a ton of time, but it's also like the people that, and this is kind of like one of the last points I'll make, the people that talk about hitting $1 million months or these crazy high months, like I've met a lot of these people, I know you have too. You don't see the full picture. Like a lot of times I know a lot of people that make 200 grand a month, right? But their margins and all their numbers are healthy, and they make way more than the guy who makes 1 million a month. You know what I mean? And that's a whole like ego trap that people fall into. And I've noticed that myself because I've seen a lot of people like, when I started in the agency game, there was kind of this whole like, I almost think it's like classrooms in school, you know? It's like I had this huge classroom when I was starting of people kind of just my age or just start when I was, and I look where they're at today, and there are some people that, you know, good agency owner friend of mine, he works in a very like, he has like a few clients, okay? He has like 2 clients. I'm not going to say the niche because I don't know if he really wants me to, but it's, people would probably know it. It's lawyers, I'll say that. And he does multiple 6 figures a month. He has 2 clients, and he makes more than anyone else I know, you know, and he has this crazy rev share model. It's a really interesting, and he beats out all the guys that I know really, or majority that make 7 figures a month or whatever, So I think it's kind of interesting, but that was the answer I thought you were going to say anyways, because I think agency is one of the best to go from 0 to even for simplicity, like 30K
Yeah.
a month. But I think once you even hit like 100, 200 a month, it's good. But you're going to start, you hit a ceiling with team, I actually think, because then it's just become, I think Eddie Malouf said it, but it's like a people game. I think that's true. Like you have to scale your team, and while doing that, your results have to be good, and you have to just be in crazy client acquisition or just go full rev share model.
Yes.
So you kind of have to like pick the path. But going forward, Mr. John, what is the plan for you? You know, what are you working on today?
Yeah.
And I guess maybe how can people find you? Because
Yes. Well, thank you, bro. This has been very fun, and I hope this was insightful. I have heard this expression, which is if you ask me what the time is, I'll tell you how to build a watch. So I hope I haven't done that too much here and given crazy long-winded answers, which I'm absolutely I am
you're good at.
definitely good at. Yes. So we're actually working on another done-for-you agency after I just went on that whole tangent about how there's, you know, it's hard to take an agency to 8 figures. I'm still going to do it with our done-for-you agency, which I will share more about very soon. I work one-on-one with agency owners to help them scale. So people that are having some clients already that are struggling and that want to grow a little bit faster and want help with client acquisition, removing themselves from fulfillment, their offer, their positioning, really just to duplicate like all the systems that I use to scale my agency. So I work one-on-one with guys to help them do that. Not like a course or a coaching program, but like a lot of one-on-one. And that's just agencyclients.com. And then people can connect with me over on Instagram. I have a new Instagram actually that is John, J-O-H-N, Grows Agencies, and agencies being A-G-E-N-C-I-E-S. Yeah, John Grows Agencies. So
That should be
you
right.
guys can find me over there. Yeah.
Well, if you need a testimonial, I'm right here. You know,
Thank
in the
you,
early
bro.
days, you were helping me out. So I probably, it would have taken me a lot longer, you know, and I think that's why a lot of people, you know, they talk maybe bad about getting courses or coaching, but I don't think I was telling you this, but I made an X post yesterday because I was bored and I was just randomly, you know, kind of spit things down on X. And I was saying like, I'm investing more in courses and mentors than I ever had in my life right now, you know? So it's like, at a certain point you realize that to get to where you want to go, you actually do have to just pay people, and yes,
Absolutely.
suck it up. You know, it's just how it is, because, you know, information is great on YouTube. I mean, you could maybe agree or disagree with me on this, John, but I feel like I have probably more on the AI agency game on YouTube than like 99.9% of people, as far as like proof or showing what I do or showing how to do it, courses, free courses. But that only gets you so far because it's free, you know, and when it's free, you're not financially invested to actually go make it work. It's a completely different game. So,
it's
I'll
a
put
game of
your
access.
Instagram in the description so people can find you there. You guys should go reach out to John, follow him, DM him. And any last words you want to leave?
No, dude, I want to riff on what you said just for a second. I literally this week have bought YouTube coaching for somebody that's helping me with my YouTube, because that's a new skill set, right? And so it's like, I think that to hammer on what you just said, business is really just a game of skill sets. Even with what we're talking about with the agency and agencies hitting certain limitations or certain ceilings, those are normally just limitations of skill set, right? You even said hiring is a big one. Well, what hurts somebody's ability to hire is not knowing how to identify good talent, or not having the skills to find the good talent, not being able to train the good talent, ramp up the good talent, you know, etc. And so that's really what everybody is missing. Like, if you're not making the amount of money that you're making with your agency, you lack the necessary skill sets. Kind of a truth pill. It's kind of a punch in the gut, but like ultimately that's what's going to get people to the next level. So I love that you said that. Very true.
No, 100%. Any final words you want to leave the people with, or?
Dude, thank you for doing this. This was fun.
100%, dude. Yeah, it was good to reconnect. You know, I think you were I probably featured you in one of my early videos in a screenshot or saying your name somewhere. So it's kind of cool that people can go back on it. Yeah. But that being said, everyone, I hope you guys enjoyed. Go follow John. His link will be in the description below. And John, it was great chatting with you.
Likewise. All right. We'll see you guys next.
Awesome.
All right.
Have a good one, guys.